How did you decide on the director?
Well, we talked with a few, I don't want to say interview because it was more collaborative than that in some ways, but we talked with a few different directors. And Silas had an extremely personal level of connection to the material. And just, whether because of that or just because of what he brings as a director, it just seemed like the right touch and feel for it, which I think has proven out throughout the process. He's got a really quiet way about him that's also very powerful in very few words. I've been amazed at sometimes the things he'll say to kick off a scene or re-kick it off that you're like, okay, I'll do that, and then it changes the entire, you're like, oh, that was very profound in its own way.
Cut. Perfect.
So clearly your background must have influenced the way you told this story.
Absolutely.
What did you bring to it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't have the full answer, but I know that for myself, what is true is that when stories are told from an insider's perspective, there's more room to kind of push the uncomfortable questions, to push the questions that are less tied up with a bow, to ask the difficult questions, but to know that behind that is a full range of experiences. Like, I'm a transgender person, but I'm also a person that, grew up a certain way, grew up working class, played music for, a long time, I have all these full experiences. And so this is like one lens that I view the world through. Hopefully I bring that, right? So when you're filmmaking, it's the director's point of view, really, that kind of informs a lot of like where we're putting the camera, how we're looking at the scene, maybe some adjustments or information that an actor might take in based on that point of view. So I would say my experience coming from a range of living through a society that has had a bit of an issue, and then sort of this big media spotlight, it makes you feel like, oh, so everything should be okay, but it's not. So it allows me to approach the material with more complexity, more nuance, more humor, more irreverence when it's merited, more messiness, I would hope, because it's a world that I'm more familiar with. Take more risks.
So how did that go for you? I mean, how did it go with your family when you announced to them that you were going to transition?
Number of things. For one, I wasn't raised with religion, so God was never part of it, but there was this feeling of like, what's wrong with me? Or like, I wore my dad's Old Spice cologne to 3rd grade, and I remember the teacher like calling me out in front of the class, like, why do you smell like a man? And I was like, oh, that's the wrong thing, okay.
Is it important that this nation have this conversation at this point?
I think it's a really important time. I mean, I think that the ways that we are, because like I said, this sort of way that we love people to be special, unique, it's almost part of an American identity to be your own person, but then this sort of punishing idea around being different, I think comes at a high cost. I feel like these, we're so divided, and I think that what I hope a story like Kid Like Jake shows is that even for these parents that are in Brooklyn and have all this support and can talk the talk, it's difficult. What I would like to show is that it's difficult to embrace, Judy says it, Octavia Spencer's role says it's very difficult to embrace, kids as they are. It's difficult to embrace people as they are. It's not easy. But I will say this, kids know themselves, and it's pretty clear for a kid right around 5, 6, 7, 8, that they pretty much know who they are, kind of what they're gonna do and if they're gonna grow out of it. I think the problem is never with the kids, it's sort of the world around them. In other words, we're not gonna create gay kids by letting boys play with dolls.